My grandma always said the fanciest solution is usually the dumbest one. And after spending summers on her porch watching her turn trash into treasure with nothing but common sense and calloused hands, I have to say she was absolutely right. Today we are counting down 35 of Grandma's most oddly useful hillbilly life hacks that have been passed down through generations of folks who had no choice but to figure things out the hard way, and every single one of them actually works. Stick around because number 1 is the hack that Grandma swore saved her entire root cellar during the worst winter of her life, and you are not going to believe how simple it is. Let us get into it. Number 35. Grandma's newspaper shoe dryer. When your boots come in soaking wet from working the land all day, stuff them tight with crumpled newspaper pages and leave them overnight. The newsprint pulls the moisture right out of the leather through absorption, the same way newspaper absorbs ink during printing, and by morning your boots are dry without cracking or shrinking the way heat sources can damage them. Number 34. Grandma's cast iron rust fix with potato and salt. Take a halved raw potato, dip the cut side into a generous pile of coarse salt, and scrub that rusty cast iron pan in firm circular motions. The oxalic acid naturally present in potatoes reacts with the iron oxide rust and begins breaking it down, while the coarse salt acts as an abrasive to physically lift the loosened rust away. Grandma never owned a single piece of steel wool in her life, and her skillets were always smoother than glass. Number 33. Grandma's vinegar ant barrier. Pour plain white vinegar into an old spray bottle and spray every windowsill, doorframe, and crack where ants have been marching through. Ants navigate using scent trails left by scouts, and the acetic acid in vinegar completely destroys those chemical trails while also acting as a natural deterrent they refuse to cross. Grandma kept a jug of vinegar under every sink and ants never made it past the porch. Number 32. Grandma's walnut wood scratch remover. Find a raw walnut, crack it open, and rub the exposed nut meat directly along any scratch on your wooden furniture in the direction of the grain. The natural oils inside the walnuts seep into the dry, exposed wood fibers of the scratch, darkening and moisturizing them until they blend right back into the surrounding surface. Grandma fixed every ding her rocking chair ever put in the floorboards this way without spending a single cent on wood stain. Number 31. Grandma's charcoal refrigerator deodorizer. Take a few chunks of plain hardwood charcoal from the wood stove. Put them in a cloth sack or an old piece of burlap and set it in the back corner of your icebox or refrigerator. Activated and natural charcoal both have incredibly porous surfaces that trap odor molecules through a process called adsorption, physically grabbing the smell particles and holding them in the carbon structure rather than just masking them. Grandma said a clean-smelling icebox meant nothing in there had gone bad yet, and she checked it every single morning. Number 30. Grandma's beeswax drawer lubricant. If your wooden drawers are sticking and fighting you every time you try to open them, rub a chunk of old beeswax or even a plain white candle along the bottom, runners and side edges of the drawer. The wax creates a smooth, slippery layer between the wood surfaces that dramatically reduces friction, allowing the drawer to glide open and shut with almost no resistance. Grandma kept a stub of candle in every dresser in the house specifically for this purpose. Number 29. Grandma's bread heel softener for brown sugar. When your brown sugar has turned into a rock-solid brick, press a slice of stale bread right into the container with it and seal the lid tight overnight. The moisture still present inside the bread migrates into the hardened sugar through the air inside the container, slowly rehydrating the molasses coating on the sugar crystals and returning the whole block to soft, scoopable condition. Grandma never threw away a single bread heel because she said they all had more uses than her grandchildren could think of. Number 28. Grandma's milk-cracked pottery repair. When a ceramic bowl or pottery piece develops a thin crack, submerge it in a pot of whole milk and simmer it gently on low heat for about an hour. The proteins in the milk called casein seep into the hairline crack, and as they heat, they coagulate and essentially fill and bind the crack from the inside out, creating a natural seal. Grandma repaired her favorite bean pot 3 times this way, and it never leaked a drop. Number 27. Grandma's Laird Chapped Hands Treatment. After a hard day of work in the cold, or after washing too many dishes, scoop a small amount of plain lard and rub it thoroughly into your cracked, raw hands before bed. Then pull an old pair of cotton work gloves over them to sleep. The animal fat in lard is remarkably similar in composition to the natural oils in human skin, so it penetrates deeply and restores moisture to the damaged layers overnight rather than just sitting on the surface. Grandma's hands were tough as leather, but they were never cracked and bleeding. Number 26. Grandma's Salt Cutting Board Scrub. Sprinkle a heavy layer of coarse salt over your wooden cutting board, cut a lemon in half, and use the cut side of the lemon to scrub the salt across the entire board surface in circular motions. The salt acts as an abrasive scrubbing agent, while the citric acid in the lemon juice simultaneously kills bacteria and breaks down any food residue and odors soaked into the wood. Grandma said a wooden board that smelled like lemon was a clean board, and she was not wrong about that. Number 25. Grandma's Coffee Grounds Garden Pest Deterrent. Save every bit of spent coffee grounds from the morning pot and scatter them in a thick ring around the base of your vegetable plants and garden beds. Slugs, snails, and many soil pests find the acidic, abrasive nature of coffee grounds deeply uncomfortable to crawl across. And the grounds also add nitrogen back into the soil as they break down. Grandma had the lushest tomato plants in the county, and she credited that old percolator for half of it. Number 24. Grandma's Cornmeal Ant Bait. Sprinkle dry cornmeal near ant trails and entry points around the kitchen or porch. Somewhere the ants will find it and carry it back to their colony. Ants cannot digest cornmeal once inside their bodies, but they cannot detect that it is harmful. So they feed it to the colony, and the problem eliminates itself over several days. Grandma always said the sneakiest solution is the one that lets the pest do the work for you. Number 23. Grandma's Onion Mosquito Bite Relief. Cut a raw onion in half and press the cut side firmly against a fresh mosquito or insect bite for several minutes until the stinging and itching start to subside. Onions contain natural anti-inflammatory compounds, including quercetin, that reduce swelling and irritation in the skin, and the sulfur compounds also have mild antibacterial properties that prevent scratching from turning into infection. Grandma kept an onion on the porch railing every summer, and we all knew exactly what it was for. Number 22. Grandma's Tin Foil Scissors Sharpener. Take a piece of standard aluminum foil, fold it over several times into multiple layers, and then cut through it repeatedly with your dull scissors using full, deliberate strokes. The aluminum foil is just hard enough to microscopically abrade and realign the cutting edge on both scissor blades simultaneously as they slide against each other and the foil during each cut. Grandma sharpened every pair of scissors in her sewing basket this way and never once used a whetstone on them. Number 21. Grandma's Egg White Leather Conditioner. Separate an egg and beat the white until it becomes slightly frothy. Then apply it sparingly to worn, dry leather boots or a leather belt using a cloth and let it fully dry before buffing. The proteins in egg whites form a flexible protective film over the leather surface as they dry, restoring some suppleness and adding a natural low-key shine without clogging the pores of the leather. Grandma treated every pair of work boots this way at the start of every winter season. Number 20. Grandma's Soap Bar Drawer Freshener. Place an unwrapped bar of good-smelling soap like lavender or rose in the back of any drawer, closet shelf, or clothing trunk to keep the contents smelling clean and fresh. Soap slowly releases its fragrance into enclosed spaces over months, acting as a completely dry, non-messy air freshener, and the same antimicrobial properties in the soap also help deter moths and other fabric pests from setting up home. Grandma tucked soap bars into every drawer in the house, and her linens always smelled like Sunday morning. Number 19. Grandma's Vinegar Weed Killer. Fill an old bottle with straight undiluted white vinegar and pour it directly onto weeds growing up through the cracks in your walkways or fence lines on a hot sunny day. The high concentration of acetic acid in undiluted vinegar penetrates the leaves and stems of the weed and essentially desiccates the plant cells, drawing moisture out until the whole weed shrivels and dies within a day or two. Grandma walked her fence line every Monday morning with a vinegar bottle, and her property lines were always clean. Number 18. Grandma's clay pot cooling system. Set a clay pot in a shaded spot in your kitchen or pantry. Fill it with water and set your butter, leftovers, or perishables in a smaller container placed inside the wet pot. Clay is naturally porous, so water slowly evaporates through the pot walls, and that evaporation process draws heat energy away from whatever is stored inside, keeping it significantly cooler than the surrounding air temperature. Grandma used this same principle before the electric refrigerator ever made it out to her part of the county. Number 17. Grandma's flour sack cheesecloth substitute. Old thin cotton flour sacks washed clean. Make a perfect substitute for cheesecloth when you need to strain broths, press whey from fresh cheese, or strain jelly. The weave of a well-worn flour sack is porous enough to let liquid through while catching all the solids, and because cotton flour sacks were thick, they could be washed and reused dozens of times without falling apart. Grandma never bought cheesecloth a single day in her life, and her apple jelly was crystal clear every single time. Number 16. Grandma's baking soda skunk odor eliminator. Mix together 1 quart of hydrogen peroxide, a 1/4 cup of baking soda, and just a small squeeze of dish soap. Then work it thoroughly into the affected fur, skin, or fabric, and let it sit several minutes before rinsing. The combination creates a chemical reaction that oxidizes the thiol compounds responsible for skunk odor, actually breaking apart the smell molecules rather than just covering them with a stronger fragrance. Grandma mixed this up herself long before any store ever sold a commercial skunk remedy. Number 15. Grandma's pine sapphire starter. Collect hardened pine sap or resin drips from pine trees and store them in an old tin can with some dried wood shavings mixed in. Pine resin has an extremely high flammable resin content that catches a spark immediately and burns hot and steady, making it one of the best natural fire starters available in the woods. Grandma said if you could not start a fire with pine sap and dry shavings, you had no business being in the woods. Number 14. Grandma's salt-preserved eggs. Fill a large ceramic crock with a thick layer of coarse salt. Nestle fresh unwashed eggs into the salt with enough space between them and cover with more salt until all eggs are fully buried. The salt draws excess moisture from the eggshell surface, creating an inhospitable environment for bacteria while also forming a slight brine seal around the natural protective bloom of the egg, dramatically extending shelf life without refrigeration. Grandma packed eggs this way every fall and had fresh eggs to cook with deep into the cold months. Number 13. Grandma's tobacco bee sting relief. Take a small pinch of loose tobacco from a cigarette or pipe tobacco pouch. Wet it slightly and press it as a poultice directly against a fresh bee or wasp sting and hold it there for 10 minutes. The nicotine and other alkaloids in tobacco have natural properties that help neutralize some of the venom compounds, and the moist poultice also draws fluid and inflammation away from the sting site through osmotic pressure. Grandma kept pipe tobacco in the medicine cabinet right next to the turpentine. Number 12. Grandma's cornstarch body powder. Use plain cornstarch as a substitute for talcum or baby powder by dusting it anywhere your skin needs to stay dry, prevent chafing, or soothe irritation from rough clothing. Cornstarch has excellent moisture-absorbing properties that reduce friction between skin surfaces and fabric. And unlike commercial powders, it contains no additives, fragrances, or chemicals that can cause sensitivity reactions on raw or irritated skin. Grandma kept a mason jar of cornstarch on her washstand, and it served about 12 different purposes. Number 11. Grandma's birch bark tinder bundle. Peel thin strips of paper birch bark from fallen trees, roll them loosely together, and store them in a dry tin or cloth bag for use as emergency fire starting tinder. Birch bark is loaded with betulin and other natural oils that make it highly flammable even when slightly damp, which is why it was the preferred fire-starting material of virtually every generation of people who lived off the land before modern conveniences arrived. Grandma kept a small roll of birch bark tucked into the wood stove kindling box right beside the matches. Number 10. Grandma's mayonnaise water ring remover. Apply a generous dollop of plain, full-fat mayonnaise to a white water ring stain on a wooden table and let it sit for several hours or even overnight before wiping it clean. The oils in mayonnaise penetrate back into the wood fibers that were disrupted and clouded when moisture got trapped beneath the finish, rehydrating and displacing the trapped water and restoring the wood's natural clarity from within. Grandma treated every water ring her coffee cup ever left within an hour of noticing it. Number 9. Grandma's beeswax food wrap. Melt old beeswax scraps and paint a thin coat over a square of plain cotton fabric using an old brush. Allow it to cool fully, and use it to wrap cheese, bread, or cut fruit by pressing it with the warmth of your hands to conform and seal. Beeswax is naturally antibacterial and creates a breathable but moisture-resistant barrier that keeps food from drying out while still allowing just enough air exchange to prevent premature spoiling. Grandma had a stack of these wraps in every size hanging above the kitchen counter like small flags. Number 8. Grandma's horseradish natural preservative. When canning or pickling vegetables, add a small piece of fresh horseradish root to each jar before sealing to help keep the pickles firm and extend the safety of the preservation. Horseradish contains powerful antimicrobial isothiocyanate compounds that inhibit the growth of spoilage bacteria inside the sealed jar, and the tannins also help vegetables retain their crunch during the long months of storage. Grandma's pickles were still crisp and sharp tasting when she opened them the following spring. Number 7. Grandma's smoked meat preservation. Build a small cold smoke box from old wood planks, hang salted meat inside it, and feed it hickory, apple, or oak sawdust that smolders slowly without producing direct flames for 6 to 12 hours. The phenols and other chemical compounds in wood smoke penetrate the meat surface and create an antibacterial barrier that dramatically slows the growth of spoilage organisms, while the low heat also helps dry the outer layers and lock in the preserved salt cure underneath. Grandma smoked every ham and sausage the farm produced, and nothing ever went to waste. Number 6. Grandma's clay mud drawing salve. Mix a thick paste of clean clay soil with enough water to make it smooth. Apply it generously over splinters, thorns, infected cuts, or insect bites, and allow it to dry fully on the skin before peeling it away. As the clay dries and contracts, it creates a drawing effect through changes in osmotic pressure, physically pulling debris, pus, or venom closer to the surface and making it far easier to extract or naturally expel. Grandma applied mud poultices with more confidence than most doctors apply bandages. Number 5. Grandma's ash and grease soap. Collect hardwood ash from the wood stove and leach it with water by letting water drip slowly through it to create lye water. Then boil that lye water with saved animal fat until it thickens and saponifies into a soft bar soap. This chemical process called saponification transforms the caustic lye combined with fat molecules into sodium or potassium salt compounds that we recognize as soap, a reaction that human beings have been using to create cleaning agents for thousands of years. Grandma made soap every spring from the season's worth of ash and fat scraps and never bought a commercial bar in her life. Number 4. Grandma's root cellar humidity control with charcoal and sand. Line the floor of a root cellar with a layer of dry sand and place buckets of charcoal in the corners to regulate moisture levels and keep the air from becoming too damp or too dry during storage season. Sand stabilizes the ground temperature gradient that a root cellar depends on to stay cool, while charcoal continuously absorbs excess airborne moisture and prevents the kind of ambient dampness that causes root vegetables and canned goods to develop mold. Grandma's root cellar was the most carefully managed room in her entire property. Number 3. Grandma's vinegar and brown paper bruise treatment. Soak a piece of plain brown paper bag in white vinegar until it is fully saturated and apply it flat against a fresh bruise, holding it in place with a cloth wrap for 30 minutes. The acidic compounds in the vinegar help increase local circulation in the bruised tissue, and some traditional practitioners believed it helped break down the pooled blood beneath the skin more quickly and reduce the visible discoloration. Grandma applied this treatment to every scraped knee and bumped shin that came through her door. Number 2. Grandma's Laird and Beeswax Waterproofing Paste. Blend melted lard with a roughly equal amount of melted beeswax. Stir them together until smooth, and allow the mixture to cool into a firm paste that you rub into leather boots, canvas work bags, or wooden tool handles. The lard penetrates the pores of the material and conditions it from within, while the beeswax seals the surface and creates a long-lasting water-repellent barrier that holds up through rain, mud, and heavy use. Grandma treated every piece of leather and canvas on the farm with this paste before the first hard rain of autumn every year. And now we have reached number 1. The hack Grandma said saved her entire root cellar during the worst freeze she ever lived through. Grandma's sand-packed vegetable storage method. Layer carrots, beets, parsnips, and turnips in a wooden crate or barrel, burying each layer completely in slightly damp, clean sand so that no two vegetables are ever touching each other. The sand maintains a consistent level of humidity around each vegetable that prevents both dehydration and excess moisture, and the separation prevents any single vegetable that begins to rot from spreading ethylene gas and decay organisms to its neighbors. Grandma said one bad carrot touching another bad carrot would spoil the whole barrel by February, but buried in sand every single one would last until spring planting. Grandma never had a Pinterest board, a life hack blog, or a subscription to anything except common sense earned through decades of hard work, and every single one of these 35 tricks came directly from the same wellspring of practical necessity that built this country from the ground up. The truth is that these hillbilly hacks work not because they are old, but because they are rooted in real chemistry, real physics, and real understanding of the natural world that Grandma's generation learned the hard way, so we would not have to. So the next time you reach for an expensive product to solve a simple problem, ask yourself what Grandma would have done, because she almost certainly had a smarter, cheaper, and more satisfying answer